I've spent the past 3 months testing and using the iPhone 16e, so in this video I'm going to help you decide whether the iPhone 16e is sufficient for your needs. Since I've also been using the regular iPhone 16 for the past 8 months, I'll also share some comparisons between these two phones in case you're considering between the 16e and iPhone 16. First up, the screen. The iPhone 16e still uses the older notch design, so you'll miss out on the dynamic island on the iPhone 16. I do like this feature quite a lot because it integrates seamlessly into the user experience. It's like a mini personal assistant that's not intrusive, but it feeds you bits of information in the background. I wouldn't say that it's a life-changing feature, just a very nice feature to have. The bezels on the iPhone 16e is slightly thicker compared to the iPhone 16, which means you get a slightly smaller screen. But Apple claim that you still get the same pixel density between both phones, so this shouldn't really affect the screen resolution. The thicker bezels on the iPhone 16e is only obvious when I try to put another iPhone with thinner bezels right beside it, but in day-to-day use I don't really notice the thicker bezels, and my thumbs don't really feel cramped when I'm typing on the keyboard on the screen, so I don't think it should bother you that much. The iPhone 16e still has a 60Hz refresh rate for the screen, same as the iPhone 16. I've never really missed the ProMotion display on my iPhone 13 Pro Max, so please don't feel like you need to spend an extra few $100s to get the Pro models solely because of the 120Hz display. The iPhone 16e can only achieve half the peak brightness compared to the iPhone 16, and this difference is kind of noticeable when you're under bright sunlight outdoors, and I will usually have to use my hand to give the screen some shade in order to see what's on the screen. So this is something to consider if you're outdoors a lot and you're also under the sun quite often. Next up, the cameras. Even though Apple claimed that the iPhone 16 and 16e have the same 48MP main camera, some teardown videos have actually shown that the sensor inside the 16e is actually smaller than the one on the iPhone 16. And I think that the sensor size difference really does show in the photos. In this photo of me in a cafe, you can see that there's slightly more bokeh effects in the background. You can also see that my backpack is more blurred out from the photo on the iPhone 16, whereas there's slightly less background separation on the iPhone 16e. You can see it in the mirror reflection of the pastries as well. This smaller sensor also means that the camera requires more time to expose before taking a photo. When I switched off the low light mode and I tried taking photos in the dark, you can see more noise in the photo from the iPhone 16e. And the difference is even more obvious when it comes to video because the iPhone 16e really struggled to light up the subject in this case. Here's another clip showing the video stabilization in the dark while I'm running. Both cameras can do 2x optical zoom even though they don't have a dedicated telephoto lens. This is achieved by cropping the 48MP sensor to get a zoom-in photo at 24MP. I think the biggest camera disadvantage for the 16e is the lack of an ultra-wide camera. This can be pretty troublesome because if you're in a small indoor space and you have a large crowd in front of you, there's only so much space that you can step back in order to try to fit everyone inside the camera frame. Here is a video of me trying to frame all the food on the table using the iPhone 16e. Because it doesn't have an ultra-wide camera, I had to lift the phone up very high above the table, and I ended up not being able to look at the screen before taking the photo, and therefore this led to a small part of the bowl being cut off at the bottom. This is where having an ultra-wide camera would be really useful, and if you participate in a lot of social gatherings, I think you'll want the ultra-wide camera on the iPhone 16 to be able to take those group photos. And as a content creator myself, it really sucks to miss out on something because the camera's field of view isn't wide enough, so this is a deal breaker for me personally, and I suspect it will be for some people as well. By the way, if you want to stay updated on the products that I'm currently testing, do follow me on Instagram and Threads because I do share some of the test results over those platforms. Alright, back to the review. Next up, connectivity. The iPhone 16e is the very first iPhone to feature Apple's own C1 modem compared to the Qualcomm modem that's usually used in previous generations and in the iPhone 16. I was wondering whether the C1 modem would lead to slower connectivity on the 16e, so I tested the download and upload speeds of the iPhone 16 and 16e under 4 scenarios. The first one is in an open area with no trees or building obstruction. The second one is a forested area with tall trees. The third one is a city area with tall buildings. And the last one is on an underground train while the train is moving. Based on my results, although the iPhone 16 seems to perform slightly better than the iPhone 16e in quite a few situations, I find that it's not super significant. I've run some statistical tests on it and the tests show that the difference might very well be due to random error or just noise in the data. So this means that you shouldn't worry too much about any connectivity differences between the C1 cellular chip in the iPhone 16e versus the Qualcomm one in the iPhone 16. Next up, battery life. The iPhone 16e has the largest battery capacity in any 6.1-inch iPhone, and it holds 11% more battery capacity compared to the iPhone 16. This larger battery inside the 16e could be the reason why Apple removed the MagSafe magnets inside it in order to make more space for a larger battery. Well, I can vouch for the longer battery life because it does indeed last noticeably longer compared to my iPhone 16, even though both phones are at 100% battery health. Because my work requires a lot of traveling, I use GPS a lot, and my iPhone 16 will get to about 30% battery life by lunchtime. Whereas for the iPhone 16e, the battery life only drops to about 50%, so it can last me an entire day. Although I wouldn't say that the 16e's battery life is on par with the 16 Pro Max or the 16 Plus, I still think that its battery life is pretty good, and it's a decent option if you want a phone with a bigger battery capacity while having the small form factor of the regular iPhone. Next up, charging. The iPhone 16e only supports 7.5 watts of wireless charging, while the iPhone 16 can do Qi 2 charging at 15 watts or MagSafe charging at up to 25 watts. Personally, I wouldn't even try the 7.5 watts of wireless charging because of how inefficient it is. I did a wireless charging test using Apple's 25 watts MagSafe charger, and I measured the charging wattage and temperature the whole time while it is charging. Based on my data, it showed that it took 6 hours to get from 0 to 80% battery. In comparison, the iPhone 16 only took 1 hour and 36 minutes. And if you pay attention to the temperature, the iPhone 16e stayed above 37 degrees Celsius for practically the entire time, even hitting the 38 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. This cannot be good for the longevity of the battery if you want to use wireless charging regularly with the iPhone 16e. In contrast, the iPhone 16 only stayed at above 37 degrees Celsius for a much shorter duration. Also, I should point out that the iPhone 16e refused to go beyond 80% battery life, even though I didn't set any charging limits or turn on the battery optimization feature. Here, you can see that I even let it run for an extra 6 hours just to be sure that it is refusing to charge beyond 80%. This issue is likely because of overheating, because my iPhone 16e showed a temperature warning on its screen. Granted, for the 16e, I did the wireless charging with the phone case on, which does retain more heat. But it's pretty much the only way to align the charging coils with the MagSafe charger properly, since the iPhone 16e doesn't have MagSafe magnets inside. If you're someone who's very accustomed to wireless charging in your car, or in your room, or on your desk, then definitely don't get the 16e. Next up, performance. The iPhone 16e has one less GPU core compared to the iPhone 16, so it should technically have poorer graphics performance for demanding games or photos and video editing. But in everyday use, I don't really notice any significant slowdowns compared to my iPhone 16, specifically when editing photos in the native Photos app or when batch applying photo edits to multiple photos. It does warm up when trying to do those tasks for a prolonged period, as well as when I'm trying to take 4K videos or 48 megapixels for a few minutes. But that's about the same as my iPhone 16, I don't find it to be a lot warmer whatsoever. There's no noticeable lag when I'm gaming either, even when I'm playing a game that has a lot of graphics going on the screen. However, I'm not really a gamer, so I can't vouch for its performance on more graphics-intensive games. But for everyday productivity tasks, you have nothing to worry about. The iPhone 16e will handle most of them with ease. Overall, I think that the lack of MagSafe support and the lack of an ultra-wide camera are the two biggest compromise on the iPhone 16e. The increase in battery life is a great benefit though, and I can see why it might be the main reason someone would choose the 16e over the iPhone 16 or other phones. But the better battery life on the iPhone 16e is not compelling enough for me to choose it over the iPhone 16, especially when I do bring a power bank with me most of the time when I go out. Personally for me, I couldn't really get over the fact that it doesn't have an ultra-wide camera, especially as a content creator, and because I'm just so used to faster wireless charging on my iPhone 16, the super slow wireless charging on the 16e is really a deal breaker for me. If you have also been considering the iPhone 16, I also have a long-term review of this phone right over here. Do give it a watch to avoid making the wrong purchase decision. I'll see you in the next video.